It's January 9th, 2024, and it's 8 in the morning at York Station in the United Kingdom. Today we'll be riding the 822 non-stop Grand Central service between York and King's Cross. York is a large station operated by LNER, which serves trains on the East Coast Main Line between London and Edinburgh. York Station services trains on the East Coast Main Line and mainly services cross-country, Transpennine, LNER, EMR, Grand Central, and Northern trains. When booking my ticket, I had a number of different train operators that would take me all the way to King's Cross, but this service ended up being the cheapest and the fastest, as I'll discuss later. Our service arrived at York 1 minute late at 8:23 a.m. The train is pretty packed with morning commuters headed to presumably their office jobs in London. It's peak time right now, meaning I definitely paid out the nose to travel at this time, but for good reason. I had a connection to make on the Eurostar later that day, and I had to be in London early. Taking a look around to see, there's a power outlet which I use to charge my phone, there's a table, a footrest, and an armrest. It's pretty standard, but this seat definitely had the most legroom of any train I traveled on in the UK. We're on a Class 180 Adelante service. Even though the East Coast Main Line is electrified, this train is diesel. Our trip along the East Coast Main Line will primarily be at 125 miles an hour, as this is the max speed for most of the main line between London and Edinburgh. Let's talk about boarding, especially during peak time, which I hadn't done in the UK yet. It was pretty chaotic, as a lot of people were getting off at York and a lot of people were getting on, so much so to where I found that my seat was taken, and instead of negotiating to get my seat back, I found that there were entire rows empty in different cars of people who had reserved seats but not shown up for the train. Being that the train had no more stops till London, I got a whole row to myself. Now, that's definitely was not the case when I booked my seat. Seat reservations are included in individual ticket purchases, and pretty much every seat was taken. I was going to be in an aisle, which kind of sucked because I like to watch the window. Seats on the Class 180 are in a 2x2 configuration with a few table seats, but most seats in an airline-style configuration. Contrary to cross-country and Avanti West Coast, ticket reservations are indicated on your seat with a reservation slip, so you're able to see on the reservation slip if the seat has been reserved through certain stations, and you can sit in unreserved seats as much as you'd like. The Class 180 Adelante is in a 5-car DMU configuration, with one car having a first-class section and the rest all being standard class. There's also a small buffet in the second car, which just happened to be the car that I was in. The typical train used on this route is the Azuma, which has been really popular with train operator LNER, which operates the majority of service. The Azuma has also been used by Transpennine Express and Hull Trains, Hull Trains being a newer operator on this route. Let's talk really quickly about the ticket pricing. I booked an advanced single on a young person's rail card, which is a 33% discount. The total came out to $54.20, which is a higher price because I traveled right at peak time. UK rail fares can vary wildly depending on the time of day that you travel. If you travel anytime in the peak, which is usually the morning rush, you're going to pay a lot of money to travel. If you travel in the afternoon, you'll get some really good deals. This actually ended up being the cheapest possible ticket, as all of the tickets ranged between $80 and $100 with that railcard discount. This was the only Grand Central service that would have worked with my schedule, making a tight connection with the Eurostar later in the day. Every other train service was operated by LNER. On time, we arrive at London's King's Cross station. On the adjacent track is a Class 225. Few of these remain in LNER's fleet as they are decommissioned to make way for the Class 800, the Azuma. The Class 225 made up much of the fleets that used to run on the East Coast Main Line and were part of the East Coast Main Line for many decades. This specific 225 is actually painted in its original intercity paint scheme, only the locomotive at the front. I'll summarize my thoughts about Grand Central at the end of the video, but now we get a good look at London's impressive King's Cross station. King's Cross Station is one of 11 major London terminuses, King's Cross Station being the gateway to the East Coast Main Line. It opened in 1852 and has usually been the starting point of the East Coast Main Line historically. London's King's Cross is currently operated by Network Rail, but is mostly served by LNER. Besides LNER and Grand Central, King's Cross is also serviced by Lumo, Hull Trains, Great Northern, and Thameslink. At the end of the station, we get a good view at another one of Grand Central's train sets. And after some more train spotting, we get a Great Northern train and our train set heading back north. And inside of the main concourse, we get a good look at the newer section of London's King's Cross Station with all of its shops and waiting areas. And now a quick summary of my experience on Grand Central. I would rate this actually the best train that I took through my time in the UK, and I took a good number of them. The seats were comfortable and had a much more leg room. Everything was on time. It was really fast and pretty comfortable and decently quiet, even though it was a diesel train. I think I definitely paid a good bit for the train ticket, but understanding that that is what I would pay at peak time. I would recommend Grand Central. I think it was an awesome train ride, definitely one of the best in the UK. And I have more reviews, including my review of the Eurostar, which I took later on the same day to Brussels. Thanks for watching, and make sure to join me in future videos from Europe and from the United States.